lines or the music so much you don't have to think about it and then you riff, and that's what I was trying to get up to with Burner and with Ava.
Because you have a home there, don't you, in New Orleans?
Well, I did. I don't know for how much longer.
Oh. Yeah. And I know Francis also has a little hotel there.
Yes, he does. Yeah. He does. But I was there first.
You were there first. Well, you know, you've just seen the film. You're the first audience here to see it. Does anybody want to ask a question? I can't see too well, but
a question?
Now I can see. Yes.
I just wondered, how did you get yourself into that role of being such a strung-out drug addict?
How did you get yourself into that role of being such a strung-out drug addict?
Well, that's a good question. And I hadn't had a drink in 5 years, just for personal reasons. And so I had to try to look. I saw it more as an impressionistic. I was looking at a character performance because I was looking at a landscape from 20 years ago of what I may have experienced back then, trying to recall it and filter it through what I would call my sober mind. And it was important to me that the character was dealing with pain. And so I thought of Richard III and how can I transform myself, any little thing I can do physically. And so I thought, because of the accident, it gave me a chance to sort of transform my posture and sort of twist my spine a little bit, so that when I would go to work, I could put that on almost like a ritual, and then it would all start coming back to me. And I know Werner wants this movie to be about the bliss of evil, which is fine, and that's Werner. For me, it was like, how can I show the hideousness of drugs through my facial expressions and through the pain? Because I don't want to glamorize it. I want to show what it makes you talk like, or what you contorts your jaw, the tension and all that stuff. So that's sort of where I was coming from.
Yes, down here. It's a very complex character. She's curious if you ever had lived any of those.
Well, in the spirit of jazz again, it wasn't so much ad-libbing as much as I was doing a picture in Australia, and I got the script, and I thought a few little lines came to me, particularly in the retirement home, because I was thinking about what was happening in our country with healthcare and all that, and trying to find ways to make it relevant and where we were going. So I started thinking about, in subtext, without giving too much away again, what his frustrations may have been, and that line, you're the reason the country's going down the drain, and all, and the gun to the head, and all that was all little stuff that I had written. And then one other thing that was interesting, which you might enjoy, is the gun in the scene where I bust the young couple on the street. And I really wanted to, because again, with jazz, I like the syncopation of the sound of the gun. And Werner was like, Nicholas, you know what would happen if you shot a gun in the air here? You'd have cops all over the place. And I said, well, actually, I do know what would happen, because I've done it. And nobody's shown up.
I've known you and Werner a long time, and you both go really far sometimes. And speaking of which, I mean, really outside the envelope to me for a film that sort of is in a genre was the ending. The ending I thought was really extraordinary and unusual. Did you guys like the ending? Yeah. But was that always the ending, or did that sort of...
No, that's a good question, and the script originally ended on me throwing the young couple against the wall, and it just went to black, which I thought would have been a chilling ending. But Werner, in his poetic mind, wanted to bring it more towards this other ending where I'm at the bottom of the ocean or bottom of the aquarium with this little laugh, and I'm actually quite fond of it.
Another question? Yes, sir?
What does the New Orleans Police Department think about...
What does the New Orleans Police Department think about...
I don't know yet.
I don't know if it's selling your house?
I don't know if that's going to help my case to stay there. But honestly, New Orleans was very supportive. And they're happy to have movies being made there. And you know what? To be fair... those cops in the movie stayed, you know, after Katrina, and they stayed, and they're going out on the street, and they are risking their lives. So even though there's this other kind of murky chaos going on, there are other aspects that I think they'll be fine. I hope they'll be fine. Another question. All the way back there. Shout.
Do you see a comparison between your character in Leaving Las Vegas and your character in this movie? Are they the same and how are they different?
I think you all heard that.
Yeah, that is also a good question. And when I did Leaving Las Vegas, a mutual friend of Tom and mine, Tony Dingman, who is a poet, but he's sober now, but at the time he was a drunk. And he was with me, and he was my drinking coach. And I hired him to sort of watch him and to study him, and then he would occasionally administer me a little bit of scotch or a sambuca, or he'd give me a ripe banana so people can smell alcohol in my breath. It was a John Barrymore technique. So I was trying to do more of a photorealistic performance where I would, you know, try to go into the drunkenness at times and see if I can navigate those waters, because I saw Albert Finney in Under the Volcano, and I had no doubt that when he was walking through the streets of Mexico that he was really drunk. And I don't know if he was or wasn't, but that was the level of realism I was trying to get to with that. Flash forward to Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. Again, I was trying to do something more impressionistic, and I wasn't sure if I could do it, if I could be interesting looking sober, in a sober mind, at a landscape 20 years ago, at recollections of what may have happened. The one thing that happened to me in Australia when I was doing another picture was I had a massive sinus infection. And in Australia, they actually still use like a 0.2%, or I don't know what the exact percent is, of cocaine solution, and they put it in your nose in these little moist towelettes, and then they open your sinuses. And it's supposed to be standard practice. We don't do it in the States, but they do it over there. And this thing happened to me, and it was a strange kismet where this happened, and he put it in my nose. So that whole day, I was like, well, what is this? What can I get from this? And I felt polluted, and I noticed I was swallowing a lot, doing that a lot, and there was like this tension in my face, and I felt really dirty inside, and I thought, well, maybe I can write these notes down and use that too. Yes, sir. Where did the iguana scene come from? You're going to have to ask Werner that one. That's all from Werner's mind. And Werner was so distressed that we had a midpoint wrap party. And he said to me at the bar, he said, you know, Nicholas, I must have 3 minutes of my iguanas in the movie. Because if I can't have these iguanas in 3 minutes, they're the best thing in the movie, Nicholas. And if I can't have those iguanas in the movie for 3 minutes, I will be so upset I will never make another movie again. And I said, okay, well, Werner, all right. Well, listen, good night. And then I went home, and I thought about it all night. And then the next morning, I called him up, and I said, now listen, Werner, yesterday at the party, you said you will never make another movie again if you don't get 3 minutes of iguanas. And I realized you cut a few scenes of mine already, but I have a suggestion. Why don't you cut the 6-page scene out where I bust a young couple on the street at the beginning of the movie, and then you can have all the iguana at the time you need. And he's like, well, Nicholas, that's very kind of you, but I think we absolutely need that scene as well.
You'll have a chance to ask Werner later. He's on a plane from Venice. He'll be here a little later, and you can find him on the street and see what he says. Yeah.
Thank you.
She's from Australia, and she really appreciates Nicholas being here. What was that signal? 5 minutes we have? Okay.
Well, yeah.
Did you take any inspiration from Harvey Keitel?
No. The thing is, Harvey's a friend of mine, and I actually love Abel Ferrara's movies, and I like what they did together in that movie. But I see the movie as being completely different. It's a different cop, it's a different city, but more importantly, Bad Lieutenant with Harvey and Abel, to me, still is very much a part of Judeo-Christian program where the character is loaded with Catholic guilt, and and you see the image of the crucifix, and that's what he's seeing. In this movie, it's more existential, in my opinion. There is no remorse. Instead of the crucifix, I'm seeing lizards, you know, and it's like, he's not, it just is, you know. Sometimes people get rewarded for mistakes in life. It just is, and there's no way to really program it. It just happens.